I'm super excited to speak to my first guest, Danielle Stanley. Danielle and I have kind of paths have crossed a few times, but this is the first time I'm going to spend quite a bit of time, roughly half an hour, to really understand her business, where she's come from, and she's going to do us the pleasure of giving us a tour of Etsy, which I think is going to be very, very informative. So I'm going to stop the screen share. And using voice to begin with, I'm going to invite Danielle to join the session. So I'm going to do the Zoom thing, which is to wave at people. It's become the thing. So good morning, Danielle.
Good morning.
So I had to cheat. I've got a green screen behind me to hide, obviously, a very messy spare bedroom. But you've got a lovely setting. Where are we?
This is my new office, the Rowan Room.
It's got a name.
My garden. Yes, the name was chosen by my Facebook followers.
Ah, very, very nice. So, we'll talk about the online world, but let's stick with the physical world. I have to say that the background looks... So is it a workshop as such?
It's a log cabin, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're designed to be used for lots of different purposes. Most people seem to have a pool table and a dartboard, but I've got 1,000 pens and 2,000 notebooks, I think.
That looks absolutely smashing. So you did mention that you may have also the assistance of a little helper.
He's been very quiet. He's been very good. My husband's a teacher, so he's been called into school today.
Right.
So I have my 7-year-old sat next to me. He's building a game of some description at the moment. But
sure.
He is.
Is he involved in a business, starting them young?
He just likes to, yeah. He likes to try and sell his Lego to people.
Well, you've got to start young. Well, we'll see. We'll be asked for his advice later on. So, can you give us a quick overview of Under the Rowan Trees? How did it all start? What are you selling, and who are your lovely customers?
Mm-hmm. Well, originally I was teaching full time before I had my son. I was an English teacher in Northumberland, and gradually wore down my mental health. After having my son, I tried to go back part-time and just found the stress of trying to do everything too much. And that's when I took up some knitting and crochet and embroidery, more to help my mental well-being. And people kept saying, oh, you should sell it. But then I discovered very quickly once I tried that people really wanted to buy the materials to do it themselves. So rather than wanting to buy things I'd embroidered or I'd knitted, they wanted to buy the kits. So while still teaching part-time, I started doing the odd Christmas fair with the little cross-stitch kits and things like that, and started my Etsy shop. And then it gradually grew a little bit to people being interested in washi tape. Are you familiar with washi tape?
No, sorry, not.
You need to
I'm a thinker, Danielle, not a doer. Apologies.
Pretty tape with pretty pictures on. And
right, I've seen those.
Any design, but I discovered buying it in the UK was quite tricky, especially buying larger quantities because I wanted to wrap my parcels with it. So I first started buying that as a wholesale trade and introducing it to my Etsy store, and that's when things really took off. And I discovered stationery was where it was at rather than my finished products. So when Rowan was 4, I left teaching and was in a bit of a lost bubble for a little while. Had no idea if things were going to work or not, but through a lot of hard work, my Etsy shop built up. I built my own website, which I'm going to show you in a minute.
Yep.
And it's now my full-time income, very full-time at the moment. It's been very, very busy. I think while people have been at home, everyone's taken up lettering, journaling, crafting.
Yeah.
It's a really busy time for me.
Super. Well, actually, since you mentioned it, would you mind ever so much maybe showing us, well, let's start with the website, give us a quick tour, and then we'll go on to Etsy, which is where I want to spend a bit of time for our guest today.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen. Hopefully it will let you. Can we see that?
Yep. Thank you.
I'm actually in the middle of rebranding. So you will notice I've got 2 different logos and 2 different lots of colours going on. So this website is actually being rebuilt at the moment, but this is the original one I built myself using WordPress,
right?
WooCommerce, and it's evolved into a bit of a beast over time as I've taken on more and more products and expanded my range. So we're talking about Google. There I've got my Google reviews feeding in.
And is that from the Google Maps or from Google Shopping? I mean, again, I don't know about it.
Google My Business.
Yeah, that's right.
So it all pulls in together. But this is my sort of basic homepage. I've got it linked into Instagram. I have a subscription box as well. So as well as selling standalone products, I do a monthly subscription service.
And is that where they get a box full of surprises, or is that set?
Yep, so we have a theme each month. So this month, it's not coping very well with Zooming and loading the website.
All right.
But this month's theme is cherry blossom. So I don't know if you can see behind me, I've got a pile of boxes ready to start packing over there. But yeah, each month is a different theme, and that's been running 3 years now and has done really well for me. And I've worked with lots of other Northeast businesses. You might recognise Tea Enthusiasts. She's Durham based. So it's
a lot of interest, the subscription service. Is that something that again came through feedback from customers, or you got inspiration from others?
Yeah, a little bit of a mixture. So I'd seen other people doing similar things and sort of asked my customers, do you fancy it? And the first month we had 30, and this month I'm doing 200. So, it's grown over time. The massive success, which was a customer suggestion, has been my Advent box, Advent calendar. And someone said, are you going to do one? And I went, yes. And then once I'd said yes, it's like, oh, now I've got to sort one out and plan it. And that has totally taken over the last couple of Christmases. The first Advent calendar bought our new suite for the living room. So that made a huge difference for my business.
Yeah. And I think that's at the heart, really, of being a trader, which is back to my comment earlier, which is sometimes you can get a bit taken by the technology and the platforms, and you start just being busy on the website, but you've got to look up and listen to what is happening around you. It's not always easy.
No, I think my customers, well, my stationery addicts, as I call them, like being part of a community, and they love having an input. So I go back to them regularly and say, I'm going to order new notebooks. Do you want lines? Do you want dotted? Do you want squares? And, they're very quick to tell me what they'd like, and they love it when I stock what they've asked for. And I think that's an advantage for us as very small businesses, is that we can constantly change and move. We don't have to plan 2 years in advance what our stock's going to be. We can go, all right, they want some of those, I'll get some of those. Which
out of interest, for the stock, I mean, I can just imagine that it becomes a passion bordering on obsession. But do you go? I suppose in the past, did you go to trade fairs? Did you
I went to
online?
Last year in London, and that was amazing. Because I found just Googling stationery wholesalers didn't get me anywhere. Whereas going to the London Stationery Show and spending 2 days chatting to people, and I came back with a huge bag full of goodies. Everyone likes giving you things to try and free samples, but basically giving out lots of business cards. So that was followed by lots of people ringing me and saying, can I come and see you with my catalogue and my free samples? Like, of course you can. So it was a great way to make contacts with lots of the different companies that I stock now. Should have happened again earlier this year, but was cancelled. It has been rearranged for September, but it's only going to be a one-day thing. But I'll definitely continue doing that because it was a great way to make contacts.
And do you find that you have to yourself be passionate or kind of thrilled by the new discovery to sell it?
It helps, but a little bit like when I was a teacher. Some lessons the material's not very exciting. But as long as you can, get it across and appeal to people, there are things I sell that are not my taste, but I know somebody's going to love them. So it's, to a certain extent, it's flexing to what people want to buy. There's no point me just selling what I like because, it may not appeal to everybody else. So there's definitely things within my range that are not to my taste, or more expensive than I would buy, or cheaper than I would buy. But I think it's very much about listening to what the customers want.
That lies the difference between running a business as opposed to something that is still very much a hobby. So would you mind ever so much giving us a tour of Etsy? So to begin with, I'd like maybe a tour as if I was a shopper.
Yes.
And then within reason, in terms of what's possible, I'd love to see what's behind the scenes, and what you can do with Etsy. What is available to would you say, do you call yourself a trader? Are you a retailer?
Etsy shop owner, I suppose.
Right. Okay, let's go for that.
They would label me. In fact, above my little picture, can you see Etsy now? I've flicked it over.
Yes, I can see it, yeah.
So above my little picture there, it says shop owner. So that's what they like to call us. But Etsy is very much about buying from people. So it's very much like being at a craft fair, but a little bit more technologically advanced. So I think it's really important that you have a personal presence on there. So
What do you mean by that?
when you see within my shop, there's a little picture of me and my name on there. So people can click on that and they can read a little bit of blurb about me. You can upload videos and pictures and things. And it's not going to interest everybody, but I think the sort of personal side of it is a real strength of Etsy. I bought a plant from somebody, and partly the reason I went with him was because his description was just hilarious. And it just really appealed. And it wasn't just really boring and this many centimetres and this way. It had a lot of personality to it, which you wouldn't get from, I don't know, Argos or wherever else you're reading online listings. So I think about making it personal and very much having a sort of curated shop, like you would with a stall at an event. It's that sort of feel. And it has changed a lot over the years. It's become much more sort of a mass market thing, and it's moved away from just handmade. So now the main areas are handmade, supplies and vintage. So those are the areas to cover, but you will find lots of other things creeping on that aren't strictly in those categories. And I suppose one of my big tips for Etsy would be stick with the rules, because a bit like any other platform, you don't own it. So Etsy have the power to decide, you know, you're not following the rules, they can close your shop. But, you know, if it's not difficult to stick by good customer service, posting things out when you should, dealing with any issues, and just, you know, maintaining and the upkeep of things. It's, you know, like having a physical shop. I
think that's true, isn't it? That the amount of effort and presence of mind is equal to having a physical shop, and it's tricky. Because I think when we approach the keyboard, sometimes, you know, there's not the same level of motivation. Just wanted to pick up on something you said a moment ago, which is, you know, a curated kind of content. So would you say that where you are with the business right now, Etsy is maybe to highlight a smaller range that maybe is available on the website, or is it to also try new things?
I pretty much have everything on both, or certainly everything that I'm allowed to sell on Etsy. There are some items that, because they're not handmade and they're not technically supplies, so pencil cases, for example, if I haven't physically made them myself or branded them in some way, whereas, because you know, paints, pens, notebooks is all under supplies, so that's fine. Basically, the more products you have on Etsy, the more likely you are to be found. So if you've only got one product, your customer's going to have to hit lucky in typing that in for you to come up in search. Whereas if you've got, I think I've got 285, it tells me they're active listings, but within those they've got multiple variations as well. So there's hundreds of products, and people are more likely to find you. So it is a case of gradually building it up. And I didn't start with anywhere near this many. You know, it's been a case of constantly adding and, you know, gradually expanding the range and adding more products.
So how many did you start with?
Probably 2 or 3. I think another mistake people make is waiting till they're ready. And a lot of us know you're just never going to be ready. It's not about being perfect. So you know, the top 2 there are stock images that have been provided by, you know, the brands I'm selling. I have other images, like the one of the highlighters that's been taken by a professional photographer for me. The one underneath of one of my stationery boxes, I took myself. So, you know, it's about gradually building up the skills and having the, you know, the images, the listings, the descriptions that match your products. You know, and I've taken these myself of these washi tapes, and they're much better.
Here they are again.
Well, when I first started, they were not good, my images. And it really does make a massive difference, because anybody who sells online will tell you customers don't always read the description. You know, they buy very much based on a picture. And so that needs to be good, because if you haven't got...
If I pick on that, sorry, Danielle, the disconnect is always that, you know, even if you run a website, you know, you write copy, but you know for a fact that you're playing to the search engines and to other things, whereas customers are going to be looking for visuals, keywords, scan through, and jump to conclusion. Can you tell us a bit more about, therefore, your interface? So as the Etsy shop owner, what can you do? What can you upload? Are there any other, also some features which can help you market the store, or things that Etsy have as little add-ons?
Absolutely. So this is the back end. And it looks a bit daunting to start with, but actually compared to a lot of platforms, I find it very user-friendly. once you get the hang of things, they do have a habit, like a lot of platforms, of moving things. So when you just get the hang of it, oh, where's it gone? But in general, it's pretty straightforward. And the app, you can get an app for your phone, which is also pretty straightforward. And you can do a lot of things without having a desktop. But there are some features that are a bit trickier, or, you know, you just find it easier on a computer. So this is the basic background. Don't be bothered by my numbers. They didn't used to be anything like that. And you can see also from the big arrows, things have gone up massively during lockdown. But also around the same time as the beginning of lockdown, Etsy started investing in Google advertising, and they funded it for the first month. And that suddenly went, zoom. But then they started charging me. So the figure, they still went up, but I was then paying for it. But there's optional advertising, and until you get over a certain point, and I'm over the point where I can't turn it off. So I have to be participate in it. But when you first start, you can completely choose whether you want to spend money on promotion or not, and how much you want to spend. You can get right down to, you know, how many pennies a day if you want to. So it's not a scary commitment, and you have control over which listings and things like that. But it is a little bit of a learning game. I've watched loads of YouTube videos when I started out, and there's lots of people who can talk for weeks on how to set up Etsy ads and which things work, and, you know, playing the game with clicks and getting the hang of it. But I would say just work on understanding and learning one aspect at a time till you feel confident, and then move on to the next bit. But just
you almost sound like a teacher when you said that.
Sorry.
But that's true, isn't it? I would be the same. I would say break down your learning. You could almost, I'm looking at the menu options on the left-hand side. You could almost give yourself a goal a week. Say, right, I want to kind of nail, you know, messaging, for example, or whatever. So if we stick to the marketing bit, because that's interesting. So I take it that with this interface, you can upload photography. You can put descriptions and the likes. I'm interested by the marketing elements. What is on offer from Etsy to help you market the store? So
within the marketing tab, there's the Etsy ads, which we can talk about in a bit more detail if you want to. They have basic social media integrations, so you can easily pin products, share to Etsy, share to Instagram. I tend to direct traffic to my website because there's lots of traffic coming via Etsy anyway. But if you just have an Etsy shop, then obviously that's where you'll be directing people. So you can use that to create your direct links. You can pay an upgrade, which I think is about £10 a month for Etsy Plus, which I have, which then gives you the option to add your own custom web address. I'm pointing at it, you can't see, sorry. Add your own custom web address if you wanted to. So if you don't want to use the full Etsy URL. And then there's the sales and coupons, which is actually really useful. And that's a bit like the abandoned cart sort of idea. So you can set it to send people a discount code if they've added something to your cart and they haven't bought it. Or you can send out a discount code to previous buyers to encourage them to come back. So I think they work really well, especially as you're working with people who are already interested in your products. You're not just blanket targeting people. You know, you're picking on people who have an interest and have bought from you before. And then you can see this. Oh, this is a beta. Ooh. There we're going. The search analytics, and this is where it gets really powerful and really useful when you start using some of these tools. And it will fill out in a second. As I said, I've got a lot of products, so it's got a lot of things to search through to fill it out. But you can see what search terms people have been using to find you. So you can see, I think you are on your own with your lack of knowledge on washi tape. 84,000 searches in the last month. Was that in the last month? So
I'll ask the audience today. So can you put it in the chat box whether you guys knew about washi tapes, and you can embarrass me even more then.
No,
feel free to say yes, we knew. And that's fair enough.
It's higher than pen, for example.
But you know that's even better than what you can get some nowadays with because, you know, Google has pulled back on data on Google Analytics. You can sometimes get some insight from Search Console, but you're right, that is just so powerful.
Yeah, and you can see what people are searching for and what's popular to then use it within other listings.
Can I ask, can you search for in general across Etsy or just your shop?
This is just looking at my shop. There are other separate add-on websites. There's something called Marmalade, like marmalade, but lead on the end, and eRank. Both of them have free and paid versions, and within that you can see what's trending, what tags are popular, what search terms are popular. If you have the paid version, you get a lot more information, but even on the free version, you can just have a little look. Etsy also put out their own trend reports, saying it's often quite obvious, Valentine's Day, Father's Day, that sort of thing. But they do send out emails, and you can search and look at what's trending and what's hot and that sort of thing. But yeah, this sort of thing, and you can filter via, you know, where you're making your money, how many listings you've got, what your conversion rate is, to see where you should be focusing. So although washi tape is really, really popular, you know, it's brought in a lot of the money for me in the last month. My conversion rate's much higher on things like calligraphy. So it's, you know, it depends on how much competition there is. You can also see my third most successful search term is the incorrect spelling of stationery. And it drives me mad a little bit having to use both spellings of stationery for my audience, and it's because it's difficult and it's confusing and people are going to struggle to spell it correctly. But often that is a way of then picking up customers other people might not pick up. And I think eBay actually used it in their TV adverts at one point.
They did, and that reminds me, the early days of SEO. You know, with some of the clients, we used to write articles where we would actually say accommodation, sometimes spelled accommodation, you know, so just to get a word in where we'd have one or two M's.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. So just to let you know, by the way, that we've got Carol Dudley and Catherine Watson who love washi tapes. Karen Dudley says she's a stationery junkie. Jill Bridges says she doesn't know about them, so I'm not the only one. And I feel something better suddenly. Thanks, Jill. So we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you about what can you do on Etsy to keep in touch and communicate with your shoppers? Because remember, early on, I made the point about this is about customer experience, and be very, very careful that I don't end up, you know, forgive me, praising you, Danielle, with your amazing customer service. But when I go online, you're absent because somehow maybe the tools of the time are getting in the way. So what can you do to keep in touch and communicate?
Well, so when you receive an order, you can fill in a template. So there's an email that gets sent out to customers when they place that order, and you can edit that and add whatever information you want. So I've got in there at the moment about, sorry, can you hear dinosaurs? He's turned it down again. So you can give in extra information about like shipping delays. So in the run up to Christmas, or people that placing international orders, I make sure I'm managing expectations from the beginning, saying this may take up to however many weeks to reach you. And then customers have the messaging feature there to be in touch, and you'll find some of them will just message saying, where is it? Whereas other people will, you know, send you lovely long letters. And I think I have always taken the approach of being ridiculously polite in Messenger, and however rude and grumpy a message may be, I am just try and be myself and say, you know, I'm really, really sorry, I'm doing whatever I can, I'm chasing up your parcel for you. And I find that works really well in most cases for placating any issues you might have. And there are reviews. If I go back to viewing my shop, you should be able to see my reviews. And everybody's going to get bad ones occasionally. Where does it actually reveal them? I think it shows them now within every single listing. You can see reviews that customers have left. And, oh, that was one about a product that I don't even sell was the first one, which I need to report to Etsy. But you can see I've got well over 1,000 there for people to sift through. And if somebody does leave you a 1-star review or a 2-star review, you can respond to it. So if something goes missing in the post, occasionally I will get an American saying, never received it. But then you have the opportunity to say, you know, here is your tracking number, blah, 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 and show that you have followed up the, and dealt with the situation there.
Can you, I mean, one thing that is very important, which I'll address next week properly, is to build that mailing list. So you have obviously control over the relationship. Can you do that via Etsy, or is it very much stay within the environment?
Specifically take people's email addresses and email them. But what you can do is within my automated messages that they receive, I have a link to sign up for my mailing list. I have a link to my Facebook page, a link to Instagram, and just sort of encourage people. And also within parcels, I put, you know, my business card and with links, and I put sometimes a postcard with extra information on, depending on what's happening at that time. And then encourage return shoppers to come find me either via my website or to come back to Etsy again.
I'm wondering, how much time do you find yourself spending on the running of the Etsy shop and in the website, and then how much time are you busy, looking for stock or fulfilling orders and that kind of thing? So have you got like a routine now that is kind of set for
There's a
you?
lot of crossover, really, because I have found the more time you spend active within Etsy, the more sales you make. So they very much like to know that you are there. So even if you're just going in and tweaking the odd photograph, that then gives everything a little boost.
That's
So if
fascinating.
you actually log in and spend 20 minutes just tweaking the odd listing, marking orders as dispatched, that then shows to them you are active and you are there. A bit like going into your shop and opening your blinds and flipping your hello sign. It's the same sort of idea. And it really does make a difference. So if I spend time adding new products regularly, I get more sales. So
I love that analogy you just made, because it's so easy to fall into, well, I've done my job done here, I've uploaded. And we know that that's also the case when it comes to B2B. So if you update your website, I've got Morag joining us. Good morning, Morag.
Morning, everyone.
When we know that if you update your blog regularly, if you kind of tweak some of the biographies, if you go back to your service pages and make some adjustments, people have reported increase boost in traffic when you do so. And I like that. I think that's a very fair way to go about it.
I've spoken to loads of people who said, I uploaded my products a year ago and I've not had a single sale. It's like, well, what have you done in the last year? And they've just sort of sat there waiting for the money to come rolling in. And it's not as easy as that.
If only.
Mm-hmm.
That would be so much easier, wouldn't it?
It would.
So just as our time together is about to come to an end, I'm wondering, what are your plans for the next 6 months for the business? I mean, you've now treated yourself to this wonderful venue. Mm-hmm. Hope that
my husband to me moving out of the dining room mainly, I think. But actually, I can mention I was in the middle of a rebrand. So my logo is changing, and I've just got my own boxes.
Oh, let's have a look.
I'll stop screen sharing.
Yeah.
Just do stop share. There we go. So these are now my new branded boxes for my subscription box. So I've got some thinner ones coming as well. These are the deeper ones, so I can fit ink in. And finally, the subscription is getting its own name. It is the Rowan Berry Box, because it's been stationery box for 3 years, because I just couldn't come up with anything better. So again, lots of people were involved in coming up with the name. We wanted to keep the Rowan in there. So as well as the monthly subscription, my customers have asked for standalone boxes, and they actually fed back. So I do an annual survey, sometimes more, and they said, we would like some slightly more expensive boxes with a bigger range of products in. Ooh, you'd like to pay more? That's fine. We can do that. So that's really the focus at the moment, is relaunching on the 1st of July with the new name and the new branding for the subscription box, and putting together a bullet journal box, a lettering box. I've got a list of them that are on their way in the process. And then I need to plan Christmas. It's started already, but the advent calendar needs to be sorted out if it's going to be as successful as it has been the last couple of years.
That's right. Yeah, you guys in the world of B2C are always planning so far ahead. That's one thing that is kind of slightly less pressure for kind of B2B people. We don't have to think about Christmas in spring. Like, it's really...
Well, maybe you should be.
Yeah, some truth. That's one of the reasons I keep an eye on what's going on, and I read. So when you mentioned what was happening, particularly with regard to the increase in interest around e-commerce and so on, because I do believe that there are some amazing lessons that can be taken from the kind of B2C environment and brought into B2B. Simply, I would say to my customers who work in the service industry, find a way to package this and make it a product. Learn from others who have done this before. Mm-hmm. Listen, thank you so much for spending some time with us, Danielle. I know that the attendees today will thank you for your time, and they agree that it's been a great conversation. If you have any questions, Danielle's going to stick around. You're going to get on with some work, I know that, and then you come back for the Q&A at the end. And so that if you have any questions, do put them in your Q&A chat. But for now, Danielle, thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon.
you.